In this video, I'm going to show you how to properly configure OBS to stream to Subsplash Live. Let's get into it. Now, before we proceed, we want to go ahead and make sure that OBS is up to date. So let's go ahead and launch OBS. And this will look similar on a Windows computer, but we're going to go ahead and click on OBS Studio in the upper left and just check for updates. And it looks like I do have an update available, so I'm going to go ahead and install that. Sweet, now that OBS has been updated, we can now go ahead and configure it to stream to Subsplash Live. Now, you might be tempted to go ahead and grab your stream key and throw it in and try to modify the settings, but we're actually not going to have to do very much technical config. We're going to use some configuration profiles provided by Subsplash. So go ahead and open up your web browser, and then we're going to navigate to support.subsplash.com. Once there, we're just going to go ahead and search for OBS. Now, I'll have a link for this in the video. I just wanted to show you where you could get this file. And we're going to click on how do I use OBS to Subsplash Live, and then we are looking for the 1080p configuration file. So we're going to grab that. It's going to take us over to Dropbox. We don't need to sign in, and we're just going to close out of that, and we're going to click download in the upper left. Dropbox surely wants us to sign in, but you can ignore that. Sweet. Now that we've gotten that, we have this folder in our downloads file called Subsplash Live 1080p. We're actually not going to do anything with that. We're going to come back into OBS. We're going to go to the upper left-hand corner. We're going to click on Profile. And here's where you can see we have already a pre-made one called Untitled. We're not going to use that. But if you've made any changes to your OBS config, that's going to be this profile here. Instead, we're going to click on Import. And then OBS just wants to have permission to view our computer. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to navigate to our Downloads folder. And then we're going to go ahead and click on this folder, and we're going to open it. Now, if I click on Profile again, I see this option for Subsplash Live 1080p. And that's it. OBS has been configured to match the recommendations provided by Subsplash. Now, we still have one more step, and that's adding our stream key. So if we go ahead and click on Settings here on the bottom right, and then we go over to Stream, we notice there's no server or stream key here. So we need to get that. And we're going to get that from our Subsplash dashboard. So let's open our web browser again, and we're going to go to dashboard.subsplash.com. And you may need to log in if you haven't already. And then we're going to navigate to the Media tab. Now, if you've never streamed to Subsplash before, you can actually just go ahead and click on the Live tab, and it's going to give you your stream key. But in this case, I've streamed before, so we're going to go down to Settings. And we're going to grab our server URL. We're going to click Copy. We'll go back to OBS. We're going to paste in that server URL. And then we're going to grab the stream key. Now be sure to grab your stream key, because if you use mine, your stream is not going to go live on your site or on Facebook or YouTube. Now that I've added those stream keys, I can go ahead and start streaming. Now ideally you're using a camera, but in my case I'm just going to go ahead and use this test pattern. So I'm going to click Start Streaming. And if I go back to my Subsplash dashboard, I can actually just go to Live. And then right here I can see my stream preview. Looks like I'm streaming in 1080p, and my bitrate is around 4000, which is perfect. This is exactly what we want to see for 1080p videos. That's it. OBS is now configured for Subsplash Live. Now there are a couple other things I want to touch on. We've configured the software, and that should work great, but there's two other variables that can affect your stream. The first is the computer that you're using. You can run OBS on a Mac or PC, but it's important to use hardware that meets the minimum recommendations for OBS, and hopefully a little bit beyond that. Now, graphics doesn't matter at all. You don't need a fancy graphics card. You can even use integrated graphics on something like a lower-end system. But anything that's more than 5 years old, steer away from those machines and just use a modern computer that has 16 gigs of RAM. It has at least a quad-core i5 or better in general. And I discourage laptops if you can avoid it. Sometimes you can't, but the challenge with laptops is they do have a thermal envelope. Now, what do I mean by that? They can ramp up, and have a lot of performance early on, but what happens is they don't do as good of a job of cooling as a desktop. So you might think of it like a car. If you have a car, you can push it really hard, but if it's not a car that's specifically designed for racing or for high performance environments, eventually your engine's going to get hot, and if you keep going, you either need to slow it down, or you're going to have damage, and computers will choose to not have damage and to slow down your performance, and that can cause streaming issues. So if you're running on a laptop and you're having issues 30 minutes into your stream, that might be the culprit, and you can check out Activity Monitor on Mac and Task Manager on Windows. Now the other thing that might cause streaming issues is your network. Super, super, super important. Never stream on Wi-Fi. Always use a wired connection. If you got to run an Ethernet cable 100 feet, run it 100 feet. You will have just a much better time streaming if you're able to get wired in. Now, just because you're wired doesn't mean that you won't have other issues. If you have a limited connection, you're on coax or DSL, and you have a guest network, that might be a culprit for some challenges. So, feel free to comment below, and I'll try to give you some tips as best as I can to mitigate that if you do run into other challenges. But these are kind of the three big things. We want to make sure we configure the settings correctly, which we just did. We want to make sure that we are running a computer that can handle OBS, which is most modern machines. And we want to make sure that our network is configured properly and always wire into the network. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions that weren't answered, feel free to drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you wouldn't mind, please give this video a like. It really helps out. And with that, happy streaming.